Stop being so dramatic, it's just money, Vanessa said with a dismissive wave of her perfectly manicured hand. She lounged on my couch, wearing a new designer dress and carrying a handbag that cost more than my monthly rent. My blood boiled as I clenched the edge of the coffee table, trying to keep my composure. It wasn't just money, Vanessa, I said through gritted teeth. It was $7,000, money I'd been saving for years to start my business. You said it was for an emergency. And it was, she replied, smirking. I needed a new wardrobe for that charity gala. You know how important appearances are. The audacity of her words was almost laughable if it didn't sting so much. You stole from me, I said firmly. I trusted you, and you lied. I want my money back, Vanessa. She rolled her eyes, standing up and smoothing the fabric of her dress. You're overreacting. I'll pay you back when I can. Don't make this a big deal. It's not like you can't save it again. Her words were the last straw. As she sauntered out the door, I felt a mixture of anger, humiliation, and resolve bubbling inside me. This wasn't over. My name is Gretchen, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one. I'm 35, married, and have been working tirelessly to save money to start my dream bakery. My husband, Ryan, has been supportive, but his family, especially his sister Vanessa, has always been a source of friction. Vanessa is the kind of person who can charm her way out of anything. With her big smile and confident demeanor, she's always managed to deflect blame and convince others to clean up her messes. I'd fallen for it before, but this time was different. This time she'd crossed a line I couldn't ignore. When Vanessa had come to me a few months ago, pleading for help with a so-called family emergency, I didn't hesitate. She made it sound urgent, something involving overdue bills and the risk of eviction. Of course I'd stepped in. I never imagined she'd turn around and spend the money on luxury clothes and accessories. That evening, I sat down with Ryan, my emotions still raw. Vanessa spent the money on designer clothes, I told him, watching his face shift from confusion to disbelief. She what? He asked, leaning forward. She lied to me, I said, my voice trembling with anger. I'm not letting her get away with this, Ryan. I'm serious. For the first time, I saw him hesitate. Are you sure about this? She's my sister, Gretchen. This could get messy. I'm sure, I replied, my jaw set. It's not just about the money anymore. It's about what's right. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring at the spreadsheet that had once represented my dreams. Every penny I'd saved over the years was carefully accounted for. Side gigs, bonuses, skipped vacations, all leading to the $7,000 that Vanessa had squandered. Ryan sat across from me, his brow furrowed. Look, Gretchen, I get why you're upset. Vanessa shouldn't have done this, but suing her? She's my sister. I sighed, trying to keep my voice steady. Ryan, this isn't about hurting your family. It's about standing up for myself. She didn't just take money, she took my trust, my hard work, my plans. If I let this go, she'll think it's okay to do it again. He rubbed his temples. You're right, but you know how she is. She'll spin this and make it about how you're ruining the family. That's on her, I said firmly. Not me. I won't let her guilt me into silence. Vanessa had always been the golden child in Ryan's family. Charming, confident, and with a knack for getting others to clean up her messes, she had a long history of exploiting people's kindness. Her parents excused her behavior as quirky or misunderstood, and Ryan had spent his entire life walking on eggshells to keep the peace. I'd fallen into that same pattern after we got married. I'd covered for her mistakes, loaned her money, even bailed her out of awkward situations with family and friends. But this time was different. This time, she'd gone too far. I called my best friend Linda that afternoon, venting my frustration as I paced the living room. She doesn't even feel bad, Linda. She actually said, "It's just money. Can you believe that?" Linda didn't hesitate. Gretchen, you need to stop playing nice. She's counting on you to roll over and let this go. I know, I said, my voice shaking. But suing her? What if it tears the family apart? Listen to me, Linda said sharply. She stole from you. This isn't about family. It's about accountability. If she didn't want to face the consequences, she shouldn't have taken the money. Linda's words stuck with me as I hung up the phone. She was right. Vanessa had crossed a line, and it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about principle. That evening, I sat down with Ryan again. "I'm filing a lawsuit," I said, my tone leaving no room for debate. He sighed deeply but nodded. "If this is what you need to do, I'll support you." With his hesitant blessing, I took the first step toward reclaiming what was mine. The next day, I walked into a lawyer's office with a folder full of documents in my hands. Bank statements showing the withdrawal, text messages where Vanessa had begged for the money, and receipts for the outrageous purchases she'd made. It was all there, a paper trail that painted a clear picture of what had happened. The lawyer, Ms. Patel, listened intently as I explained the situation. "So, you're saying your sister-in-law requested this money under false pretenses and has since refused to return it?" "Exactly," I replied, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "She said it was for an emergency, but she spent it on designer clothes and handbags. I want to take her to court to get it back." Ms. Patel nodded thoughtfully. "You have a strong case, Gretchen. The text messages alone show clear misrepresentation, and the bank records back it up. Filing a lawsuit is the right move if you're ready to follow through." "I'm ready," I said, though a part of me still felt nervous. I know this is going to create a lot of drama in the family." "Legal action often does," she admitted. "But this isn't about family drama. It's about justice. If she's done this to you, chances are she's done it to others as well." Her words hit me like a lightning bolt. Could Vanessa have pulled this stunt with other family members? No. Later that evening, I sat in the living room, reviewing the paperwork Ms. Patel had given me. Ryan walked in, sitting down beside me. "How did it go?" he asked cautiously. "She said I have a strong case," I replied, glancing up at him. "But she also said something that's been stuck in my head. What if Vanessa's done this to other people in the family?" Ryan's expression shifted, and for a moment he looked genuinely troubled. "I wouldn't be surprised," he said quietly. "She's always had a way of getting what she wants from people, but no one's ever called her out on it." "Well, I'm calling her out now," I said firmly. "She needs to be held accountable, not just for me, but for everyone she's manipulated." The next morning, I filed the lawsuit. As I left the courthouse, a sense of resolve settled over me. This wasn't just about getting my money back. It was about drawing a line in the sand and refusing to let Vanessa's entitlement go unchecked any longer. For years, she'd coasted on charm and manipulation, but now the tide was turning. The day after I filed the lawsuit, Vanessa called. Her voice was dripping with exaggerated sweetness, but I could hear the edge of panic beneath it. "Gretchen," she began, dragging out my name. "I heard from Ryan that you're, taking legal action. Don't you think that's a little extreme?" "No, Vanessa," I said, cutting her off. "What's extreme is stealing $7,000 from someone who trusted you and then acting like it's no big deal." Her tone hardened instantly. "I didn't steal it, Gretchen. I borrowed it. There's a difference." "Borrowing implies you had any intention of paying it back," I snapped. "You've made it very clear that you don't." She sighed dramatically. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. We're family. Family doesn't sue each other." "Funny how you only bring up family when it suits you," I shot back. "This conversation is over. If you want to talk, do it through my lawyer." Before she could respond, I hung up, my hands shaking. For years, I'd let Vanessa talk circles around me, but not this time. That evening, Ryan and I sat down for dinner, the tension palpable. "Vanessa called," I said, breaking the silence. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "What did she say?" "She tried to guilt me into dropping the lawsuit," I replied, my voice steady. "But I'm not backing down, Ryan. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about holding her accountable." He nodded slowly. "I know. It's just... she's my sister. This is hard for me too." "I get that," I said softly. "But you need to understand. She's been taking advantage of everyone, including you. She's counting on us to let her get away with it, and I can't do that anymore." For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then finally, he reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm on your side, Gretchen. I just hope the rest of the family sees it that way." The next day, Linda came over to help me organize the growing pile of evidence for the case. As we sorted through text messages, receipts, and bank statements, she paused, holding up a particularly telling exchange. "This one," she said, "proves she had no intention of paying you back. It's gold." I leaned over to read it, Vanessa's dismissive tone practically jumping off the screen. "Relax, Gretchen. You'll make the money back in no time. Why are you so obsessed with this?" Linda shook her head. "She doesn't just think she's entitled to your money, she thinks she's untouchable." "Well," I said, a small smile creeping onto my face, "she's about to find out she's not." 2 days after Vanessa's call, the family group chat exploded. A message from her popped up, dripping with faux humility. "Hey everyone, just wanted to let you know that Gretchen is suing me over a little misunderstanding. Can you believe it? I thought we were family." Almost immediately, replies flooded in. Her mother chimed in with, "Gretchen, is this true? Why would you sue your sister-in-law?" Her brother joined in with a simple, "Seriously?" I stared at the messages, my stomach twisting into knots. Linda, sitting next to me, peeked over my shoulder. "Oh, she's trying to control the narrative," she said flatly. "Classic Vanessa." "You think I should respond?" I asked, my finger hovering over the keyboard. Linda shook her head. "Nope. Let the facts speak for themselves. If they want answers, they'll get them in court." But staying silent didn't stop the phone calls. Later that evening, Ryan's mom called, her voice thick with frustration. "Gretchen, I just heard about this lawsuit," she said. "Why on earth would you do something like this? We're family." I took a deep breath. "She stole $7,000 from me," I replied, keeping my tone calm but firm. "I've asked her to pay it back, and she refused. This isn't about family. It's about accountability." "Well, surely this can be settled without dragging the family into it," she said, her tone softening, as if I were the unreasonable one. "I tried to settle it privately," I countered. "Vanessa made it clear she doesn't care. This is the only way to get her attention." There was a long pause. "You do what you think is best," she said finally, though her tone was far from supportive. When I hung up, Ryan looked up from the couch. "Was that my mom?" "Yeah," I said, sitting down next to him. "She wasn't happy." "She's just worried about the fallout," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Everyone's always tiptoeing around Vanessa, trying not to upset her." "Well, maybe it's time they stopped," I said. "She's been getting away with this for too long." The next morning, I met with Ms. Patel to discuss the case. "We've got everything we need to prove your claims," she said confidently. "But there's something else you should know." She slid a folder across the desk. Inside were records Vanessa's other brother, Kyle, had sent in after hearing about the lawsuit. Text messages, bank statements, and even emails. All evidence that Vanessa had borrowed money from him, too, using the same sob story. "She's been doing this to other family members," Ms. Patel explained. "This isn't just a one-time thing. It's a pattern." I stared at the folder, equal parts furious and vindicated. "This changes everything," I said. As I pored over the contents of the folder Ms. Patel had given me, my disbelief grew with every page. Vanessa had borrowed thousands of dollars from Kyle over the years, promising to pay it back as soon as things got better. There were messages between them where she'd guilted him, claiming she needed money for medical bills, only to turn around and post photos of lavish shopping sprees on social media. "How has no one stopped her before?" I muttered, shaking my head. Ms. Patel smiled thinly. "People like Vanessa thrive on silence. Most of the time, her victims don't want to stir up trouble, especially in a family setting. You're the first person who's decided to hold her accountable." Her words stayed with me as I left the office. For years, I'd watched Vanessa weave her way through life, charming and manipulating everyone around her. She'd built her entire persona on a foundation of lies and entitlement, and it was finally starting to crack. That evening, Ryan came home to find me at the kitchen table, organizing the growing pile of evidence against his sister. He glanced at the documents, a deep frown settling on his face. "What's all this?" "More proof of what Vanessa's been up to," I said, handing him the folder. Kyle came forward with his own story. She's been borrowing money from him for years using the same tactics she used on me. He sat down heavily, flipping through the pages. I knew she wasn't great with money, but this?" He shook his head, his voice thick with frustration. "She's been lying to everyone." "She has," I said softly. "And now, the truth is coming out." Ryan looked up at me, his expression conflicted. "Do you think this is going to tear the family apart?" I hesitated before answering. "Maybe. But if we keep enabling her, she'll never stop. This isn't just about the money anymore. It's about making sure she can't hurt anyone else." He nodded slowly. "You're right. She needs to face the consequences. Whatever happens, I'm with you." Over the next few days, Ms. Patel finalized the paperwork to include Kyle's evidence in the lawsuit. Meanwhile, Vanessa doubled down on her attempts to spin the story, painting herself as the victim in group chats and family phone calls. "Gretchen's always been jealous of me," one of her texts read. "She can't stand to see me happy, so now she's trying to ruin my life." I forwarded the message to Ms. Patel, who simply replied, "Let her dig her own grave. The more she talks, the easier our job gets." As the court date approached, I felt a mixture of nerves and resolve. Vanessa thought she could charm her way out of this, but she was about to learn the hard way that her lies had finally caught up with her. The day of the court hearing arrived faster than I expected. As Ryan and I walked into the courtroom, the air felt heavy with anticipation. I glanced over at Vanessa, who was seated at the defendant's table with her lawyer. She looked as polished as ever, her confidence radiating from every perfectly styled hair. She caught my eye and smirked, mouthing something that looked like, "Good luck." I looked away, gripping the folder of evidence in my hand a little tighter. This wasn't about luck. It was about facts, and I had plenty of those. Ms. Patel leaned over, her voice calm and steady. "You're ready for this, Gretchen. Just stick to the truth and let the evidence do the talking." I nodded, trying to steady my breathing as the judge entered the room and called the court to order. The first part of the hearing focused on presenting the evidence. Ms. Patel began with a clear, concise opening statement, laying out Vanessa's deception and misuse of the $7,000. "This case is about trust," she said, her voice carrying through the room. "Trust that was abused for personal gain." She then walked the court through the timeline, presenting the text messages, bank records, and receipts that showed exactly how Vanessa had used my money to fund her extravagant lifestyle. Vanessa's lawyer tried to argue that the money had been a gift, not a loan. But Ms. Patel countered with the text messages, where Vanessa had explicitly promised to pay it back. "The defendant's intent was clear," she said. "She knowingly misled my client to obtain these funds under false pretenses." As Ms. Patel spoke, I watched Vanessa shift uncomfortably in her seat. For once, she didn't look so confident. Then came my turn to testify. I took the stand, my hands trembling slightly as I adjusted the microphone. Ms. Patel guided me through my testimony, asking clear, straightforward questions about how Vanessa had approached me, what she'd said, and how I'd discovered the truth. When Vanessa's lawyer cross-examined me, he tried to paint me as overly dramatic, someone who had misunderstood a family arrangement. "Isn't it true," he asked, "that you've helped other family members financially in the past without issue?" "Yes," I replied firmly. "But they didn't lie to me about why they needed the money. Vanessa did. That's the difference." The judge nodded slightly, his expression thoughtful. As I stepped down from the stand, I felt a wave of relief. I'd told my side of the story, and now it was up to the court to decide. The second half of the hearing shifted focus to Vanessa's defense, which felt more like an elaborate web of excuses. Her lawyer argued that the $7,000 was a family gift, claiming I had changed my mind after seeing how Vanessa used it. Vanessa took the stand, playing the victim with an Oscar-worthy performance. "I was going through a tough time," she said, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I thought Gretchen understood that I'd pay her back when I could." Ms. Patel wasted no time dismantling her act during cross-examination. "Ms. Turner," she said, her tone razor-sharp, "you claimed you intended to repay my client. Can you provide any proof of that intent? Any written agreement, payment plan, or even an attempt to return the funds?" Vanessa faltered, glancing at her lawyer for help. "Well, no, but I thought—" "Thank you," Ms. Patel cut her off. "No further questions, Your Honor." Then came the moment we'd been waiting for. Ms. Patel presented the additional evidence from Vanessa's brother, Kyle, which detailed her history of borrowing money from other family members under false pretenses. "This pattern of behavior is consistent," Ms. Patel argued. "Ms. Turner has used family ties to manipulate others into giving her money, with no intention of repaying it. My client is simply the first to hold her accountable." Vanessa's lawyer objected, claiming the new evidence was irrelevant, but the judge allowed it. I watched as Vanessa's confidence crumbled, her polished demeanor replaced by visible panic. When Kyle testified, his words carried a weight that even Vanessa couldn't deflect. "She told me she needed money for medical bills," he said, his voice steady but firm. "I later found out she used it to book a luxury vacation. This isn't an isolated incident, it's who she is." Vanessa avoided eye contact with him, her face flushed. By the time the judge announced a recess to deliberate, I felt a strange mix of emotions, anxious about the outcome, but also proud of myself for standing up to Vanessa's lies. Ryan squeezed my hand as we waited in the gallery. "No matter what happens, I'm proud of you," he said. "You've shown more strength than anyone else in this family ever has." "Thanks," I said, managing a small smile. "I just want this to be over." When the judge returned, the room fell silent. He reviewed the evidence briefly before delivering his verdict. "The court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Ms. Gretchen Hayes. The defendant is ordered to repay the $7,000 along with additional legal fees incurred by the plaintiff." Relief washed over me as the words sank in. I glanced at Vanessa, who sat frozen, her jaw clenched. For once, she had nothing to say. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt a sense of vindication I hadn't expected. This wasn't just about the money. It was about finally standing up for myself and proving that Vanessa's manipulation had limits. "Let's go celebrate," Linda said, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. I smiled. For the first time in a long time, it felt like I was finally reclaiming control of my life. The days following the court verdict felt surreal. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of Vanessa's manipulations looming over me. The money was coming back, not immediately, of course, but through legally mandated payments. More importantly, I'd finally stood up for myself in a way I never thought I could. Sitting at my kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee, I opened my laptop and pulled up the business plan I'd put on hold. The sight of it filled me with a mix of excitement and nostalgia. This bakery had always been my dream, and now it felt closer than ever. Ryan walked in, glancing at the screen. "Back to planning the bakery?" he asked, leaning over my shoulder. "Yeah," I said, smiling. "I think it's time to start moving forward again." He kissed the top of my head. "I'm proud of you, Gretchen. You've handled all of this with more grace than I thought was possible." I laughed lightly. "I don't know about grace, but I'm glad it's over. Now I can focus on what really matters." Later that day, Linda and I met for lunch at our favorite cafe. She beamed as I told her about my plans to revive the bakery project. "It's about time," she said, raising her iced tea in a toast, to Gretchen finally kicking Vanessa to the curb and living her best life. I clinked my glass against hers, laughing. "Here's to that." Linda leaned in, her expression softening. You know, Gretchen, what you did in court wasn't just about the money. You proved to everyone, especially yourself, that you're stronger than they gave you credit for. No. Her words stayed with me as I walked home that evening. She was right. This wasn't just about reclaiming the $7,000. It was about reclaiming my voice, my boundaries, and my sense of self-worth. That night, I sat by the window, staring out at the city lights. The house was quiet, the kind of peaceful silence I hadn't appreciated in a long time. I thought about Vanessa and the chaos she'd caused, wondering if she'd ever truly change. But then I realized it didn't matter. For years, I'd let her actions dictate my emotions, my choices, my peace of mind. Not anymore. This was my life, and I was finally learning to live it on my own terms. A week later, I stood outside a small, cozy storefront on the edge of downtown. The space had been listed for rent, and I'd been eyeing it for months, imagining how it could be transformed into my dream bakery. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The walls were bare, the floors scuffed, and the air carried the faint scent of sawdust. But I saw potential. For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of excitement that wasn't dampened by stress or self-doubt. This is it, I whispered to myself. This is where it all starts. Later that day, I called Linda to share the news. I think I found the perfect place for the bakery, I said, pacing the living room with a mix of nerves and excitement. That's amazing, she exclaimed. Are you ready for this? Honestly, I laughed. I don't know, but I'm going to try. This whole thing with Vanessa, it taught me I'm stronger than I thought. If I can handle her, I can handle this. You can, Linda said confidently, and I'll be your first customer. As I hung up, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced in years. The battle with Vanessa had been draining, but it had also been transformative. It forced me to confront my own fears, to stand up for myself, and to realize that I deserved better, not just from others, but from myself. I thought about the family dynamics that had been shaken by the lawsuit. Vanessa had gone quiet since the verdict, her charm no longer a shield against the consequences of her actions. Ryan told me she'd moved out of town, avoiding the judgment of those who finally saw her for who she was. As for me, I was learning to let go of the guilt and anger. It wasn't my job to fix Vanessa or repair the fractures in the family. My job was to build the life I wanted, one step at a time. That evening, I sat down with my laptop and opened my business plan again. The words on the page felt different now, less like a distant dream and more like a roadmap. I started making notes, outlining next steps, and researching permits and suppliers. The bakery wasn't just a goal anymore. It was a symbol of everything I'd fought for, everything I'd learned about myself along the way. As I closed the laptop and turned off the lights, I felt a deep sense of peace. The past was behind me, and the future was mine to create.